This happened just a few weeks ago. I was sitting in the house where I raised my son, feeling the weight of memories. It was hard without my husband. My son thought I should sell the house and move on. Maybe he was right, but it felt like I was letting go of everything. I didn't know if I wanted to be there anymore. One day I wandered into the garden. The sun shone on my back, but I didn't feel warm. The bushes were overgrown. I hadn't cared for them in years. As I pulled at the weeds, my hand hit something hard. I dug deeper, pulling away dirt, and finally uncovered a small wooden box. I could see it was locked, but I felt a strange pull to it. I thought about leaving it there, but I wanted to know what was inside. The following days felt strange. I couldn't shake the thought of that box. Every time I went back to the garden, I felt the urge to dig more. One night I sat on the porch, and I heard laughter. It was faint, but I felt as if someone was hiding there. I looked around but saw nothing. I was scared. Those moments came and went, but they left a chill in me. I remembered my husband's stories about secrets buried in the garden. I started to wonder if the box was something he had hidden. The markings on it began to change, almost like they were alive. I felt colder with every visit. Memories I had buried with my grief surfaced, and I felt pieces of my past slipping away. I wasn't sure if I was losing my mind. The shadows in the garden seemed to watch me closely. I would press my hands against my heart, trying to calm down, but it wouldn't work. It felt like I was being followed, like something was waiting for me. Then came the day I decided to confront the box. I dug frantically, desperate to find a key or something, anything. Suddenly I heard a voice, soft, almost like a whisper, calling my name. I turned around, but no one was there. Laughter echoed again, but it felt heavier this time. I felt icy fingers wrap around my heart. I steeled myself and focused on the box. It shifted slightly in the dirt, almost urging me closer. My hands trembled as I reached out. I wanted to know what was waiting inside. Was it a clue from my husband? Something guiding me? The fear and curiosity twisted together, leaving me breathless. I took a deep breath. I had to know. What was inside that box? I couldn't shake the feeling that it might tell me something important. The laughter rang through my mind. Would I regret opening it? What would I find? The urge was too strong to resist. I dug deeper, my heart racing. I had to see. I couldn't stop digging. My hands ached, but the anticipation fueled me. I was close. I felt the coolness of the box against my fingertips. The laughter pulsed through me again, echoing like a distant memory. It was mocking, almost. Should I just dig it out, or should I stop and think? But thinking only brought back memories of my husband, his warm smile, his soft laughter. I shook my head to fend off the whirlpool of emotions. This wasn't about him anymore. It was about what he left behind, and what I could find. I clawed at the last bits of dirt. Finally, the box came free. It looked older than I remembered, or maybe that was just my mind playing tricks on me. I dusted it off, and my heart fluttered as I examined the lock. I wished for a key. Felt foolish for even thinking it might open easily. My fingers traced over the symbols carved into the wood. They felt alive and, for the first time, almost familiar. "Come on," I whispered, looking around as if the garden itself might answer. The air felt thick, charged with something I couldn't name. It was then I heard a rustle behind me. I turned quickly, heart hammering. Nothing. Just the wind whistling through the trees. I gritted my teeth and focused back on the box. I had brought a small screwdriver with me. Maybe I could force the lock open. As I fiddled with it, I felt a presence. My skin prickled, goosebumps marching up my arms. I paused, staring at the box. "Hello?" I called, my voice shaking. No answer, just the rustling again. With a sharp inhalation, I twisted my screwdriver deeper. The lock cracked and the box creaked open. I held my breath, heart racing wildly. Inside was a collection of letters, yellowed with age. My hands shook as I sifted through them, but the moment I picked one up, I froze. The first line read, "To my beloved, if you find this." A chill swept over me. I dropped the letter. My eyes scanned the others, recognizing my husband's confident handwriting. The warmth in my heart turned to ice. Each letter was dated before my son was born, filled with words of love, dreams, and plans for a family. I thought I knew everything, but these words were unlike anything I'd read from him. Then, just as I began to understand their meaning, something shifted behind me. The laughter grew louder, more menacing. The air thickened, swirling around me. I rushed to gather the letters, my breath quickening. There was an urgency in me that I couldn't explain. As I turned back to the house, my heart nearly stopped. The shadows in the garden seemed to shift, drawing closer. I squinted into the dim light, realizing I wasn't alone. A figure stood just beyond the overgrown bushes. I stared, my heart pounding. Who was this? What did they want? Before I could move, they stepped forward, and the laughter erupted again, low, dark, and echoing through the garden. I clutched the letters tightly, suddenly all too aware of the weight of my own memories. But there was no way I could go back. Not now. Not with this stranger watching me. I couldn't breathe. The figure stepped closer, emerging from the shadows, and my stomach dropped. It was a woman, her hair wild and unkempt. There was something strangely familiar about her, but I couldn't place her. I wanted to call out, maybe ask her who she was, but the words stuck in my throat. "Are you looking for something?" she asked, her voice carrying that same unsettling laughter. I couldn't tell if she was mocking me or genuinely curious. I clutched the letters tighter to my chest. "Why are you in my garden?" I managed to say, trying to sound braver than I felt. "I've been waiting for you," she replied, her eyes glinting in the dim light. "I knew you'd find it eventually." "Waiting for me?" I shook my head, disbelief swirling in my gut. "Who are you?" She stepped closer still, her expression unreadable. "It doesn't matter, does it? You're the one with the letters. You're the one who wants to know the truth." All my instincts screamed at me to run, but something about her words anchored me. The truth? What truth? My mind raced through the letters in my hands, realizing I hadn't read them all yet. "If you know about those letters, then you know what they mean," I said, searching her face for any sign of deception. "Why are you here?" A sly smile curled on her lips, and it sent an unpleasant shiver down my spine. "Because you're not the only one who longs to uncover what lies buried. Don't you want to understand your husband, and what he was hiding?" My thoughts swirled. Hiding? No, that couldn't be right. I started to shake my head, but the laughter returned, echoing in my ears. It was almost as though the garden itself was alive, responding to our conversation. "There's something more," she said, her voice suddenly serious. "You must see what's next if you want to find peace." "What do you mean?" I asked, clenching the box of letters. My world felt unsteady, the ground beneath me shifting. The woman's gaze flickered beyond me, her expression shifting to confusion. "They're coming for the letters, you know. The laughter is a warning. You must leave this place." Panic ignited within me. I didn't want to leave without answers. "Who's coming?" I pressed, feeling the dark shadows close in. A crack of lightning flashed overhead, illuminating her face for a heartbeat. They want what he buried, she said, her voice now urgent. You have to trust me. We can't let them take it. Before I could respond, another shadow moved in the distance. I turned my head to see figures creeping through the trees, silhouettes, eyes locked on us. My breath quickened. I couldn't just stand here, exposed and vulnerable. Run! The woman shouted, her voice filled with desperation. Take the letters, now! I stumbled back toward the house, clutching the box tightly as the figures approached. I didn't know who they were, or what they wanted, but I was suddenly aware of the stakes. All those years of denial stood in stark contrast to this moment. I couldn't lose the truth. I couldn't lose him again. With one last glance over my shoulder, I dashed toward the house, heart racing, the laughter still echoing in the air. A haunting reminder of the past I couldn't escape. I burst through the back door, the weight of the box heavy in my arms. I slammed it shut behind me, pressing my back against the wooden surface as if it could shield me from whatever was out there. My heart thudded loudly in my ears, drowning out the echoes of laughter. I needed a moment, just a second to catch my breath. The kitchen was dimly lit, cluttered. Dishes stacked in the sink, evidence of my neglected routine. I had put everything on hold after my husband died. Now it all felt so irrelevant. I locked my gaze on the box, desperate to regain some clarity. What was inside? Would it answer my questions or raise more? I set the box on the table and opened it slowly. Inside, the letters were neatly folded, waiting for me. An unseen force was compelling me to read them. I picked one up, the paper yellowed and brittle. The handwriting was unmistakable. It was his. But before I could dive in, a loud thud against the back door sent a jolt through my body. I glanced up, my breath hitching. They were here. Whoever wanted the letters was outside. My instincts screamed at me to hide, but I needed to be brave. I couldn't let them take this. A shadow fell across the window, blocking out the weak light. I ducked instinctively, clutching the letter in my fist. What do I do? I whispered to no one. I could still hear the woman's voice warning me. I had to keep the truth safe. Suddenly the door rattled violently as someone pounded against it. Open up! A voice shouted, deep and demanding. It sent chills down my spine. I couldn't recognize it, but it felt like a threat. I swallowed hard, fighting the urge to scream. Then I heard a different sound. Footsteps shuffling around the side of the house. More figures. I pressed my ear against the door, straining to hear. Anxiety clawed at me. Visions of all the secrets I'd avoided flooding my mind. The letters held a weight that this figure sensed. I grabbed the box and scanned the room. My eyes fell on the basement door, slightly ajar. It was dark and musty down there, and I had long avoided the damp space. Was it my only option? The pounding on the door grew louder. We know you're in there. You're hiding something. Adrenaline surged. I couldn't think. I just had to act. I threw the box under the table, hoping it would remain hidden, and raced to the basement door. Just as I stepped into the darkness, the door burst open, and I stumbled down the stairs, my breath ragged. The air was stale and clung to my skin. Then, everything went quiet. Heart pounding, I fumbled for the light switch. But when I flipped it, nothing happened. The darkness swallowed me whole, my heart racing for a different reason now. I felt my way along the wall, searching for anything. Any clue that might help me understand what was happening. And then, I felt something cold and metallic. I froze, my gut twisting. What was it? That's when I heard a voice. Not the one from before, but softer, yet somehow sinister. You're not alone down here. I wanted to scream, but I held my breath instead, knowing this was just the beginning. I strained to hear any movement above me, the weight of silence pressing down hard. The voice echoed in my mind. "You're not alone down here." I pressed my back against the wall, trying to remember how many steps I'd taken down. I could just turn and leave, run upstairs. But that voice pulled at me like a thread. I stepped forward cautiously, the cold metal still clutched tightly in my hand. My fingers brushed over it, feeling certain that it was some kind of handle. Something nestled within this darkness called to me. Just as I started to pull at it, I heard a thud above, followed by muffled voices. They had gotten in. Panic surged through me, driving me mad with fear. "Where is she?" One voice demanded, coarse and impatient. I shivered, pressing into the shadows of the basement, wishing I could blend into the darkness itself. I could hear them moving around the house, searching. Suddenly the cold metal shifted in my grip. I tugged at it harder, and then felt it give way. A hatch swung open, revealing a narrow tunnel beneath the floor. My breath caught in my throat. Was it a way out, or another trap? I glanced back toward the stairs, but the footsteps were getting closer. They were searching each room, and I was running out of time. With a single breath, I made my choice. I dropped onto my stomach and crawled into the tunnel, the earth cold and damp against my skin. It was dark and cramped, but the thought of the searching figures above pushed me forward. I crawled onward, the dimness swallowing me. After what felt like forever, the tunnel opened into a larger space. I could see a faint glimmer ahead. I squinted, straining my eyes. Rats scurried across the floor, and I shuddered, feeling a wave of claustrophobic panic threaten to engulf me. I needed to keep moving. I trudged through the small chamber, keeping low, feeling the cold moisture settle on my wrists and arms. I stumbled upon something else, a wooden box, dusty and hidden beneath debris. My heart raced. Was it connected to my husband? Was this part of his past? I could hear the voices still echoing above. If they found their way down, I would have no escape. I unlatched the box, my nerves electrifying. The lid creaked open, and I was greeted by papers, just like the ones in the box upstairs. There were photos, documents, and letters. I reached for one, my fingers trembling. As I pulled it out, I caught a glimpse of the figures moving about upstairs, shadowy and menacing. And that's when I saw something. A photograph. Not just any photograph, but one of my husband with another woman. Her face was obscured, but the familiar smile was unmistakable. "Who is she?" I whispered into the darkness. The realization crashed over me like ice water. Whatever was happening, whatever secrets lay buried in this house, they were beginning to unravel. I clutched the photograph tightly, my heart racing. A new threat emerged, the truth behind my husband's life, and now it felt dangerously close. Just as I closed the box, I heard a louder crash above me. "She has to be down there!" The deep voice boomed, sending terror through my chest. The urgency to uncover the truth grew unbearable. But would I escape with it, or would it be the last thing I ever found? I froze, heart hammering in my chest, as the voice from above roared through the fragile silence. Panic clawed at my throat. I gripped the photograph, the paper crumpling under my sweat-slicked fingers. I wasn't just hiding anymore. I was trapped. The footsteps thudded closer, a steady, deliberate pacing. I knew I had no time to waste. I had to go deeper into the tunnel. I scanned the dimly lit chamber for another exit, for anything that might lead me away from this impending danger. In the corner, a shadow shifted. I squinted, feeling my heartbeat quicken. Was it just a trick of the light? Or was something, or someone there? I pressed on, crawling toward the far wall, hoping I wouldn't draw attention to myself. The voices continued to call for me, frustration evident in their tones. Check the basement! A hard thump echoed as something was slammed into a wall upstairs. They were growing more desperate. I couldn't think about that now. I had to find a way out. As I moved deeper into the chamber, I stumbled upon loose soil. My instincts kicked in, and I scratched at the ground. Why would there be soil here? The earth felt oddly fresh. A flash of hope ignited within me. Maybe there was something buried. A way out? I dug harder, my nails clawing through the dirt. My mind raced. What if this was tied to my husband? What if he had hidden something down here? With every handful of soil, I could just feel it. A secret waiting to be uncovered. But then the voices grew louder. They were calling my name now. Jessica! We know you're down there! The deep voice sent ice through my veins. I worked faster, my hands trembling, dirt flying as I dug deeper. That's when I hit something solid. I paused, breathless. I could hear those footsteps nearing the basement stairs, the growing sound of urgency. My heart pounded in my ears as I pushed aside the last bit of dirt. The glimmer of metal emerged, faintly catching the low light from the tunnel. It was a small door, rusted and old, perhaps leading somewhere else. I pulled at the handle, but it didn't budge. I slammed my shoulder against it, muscles straining under the pressure. My breath quickened. Please, please, I whispered. Fear replacing hope. Suddenly, a loud crash came from above, followed by a heavy thump as if someone had stumbled. This way, the voice shouted. Panic surged. I was out of time. I leaned into the door one last time and the hinges screeched in protest, but finally gave. The door swung open and an overwhelming smell of dampness and decay rushed over me. Without a second thought, I squeezed through, landing in darkness once again. I glanced back, the opening growing smaller as I entered deeper into the unknown. My breaths came out short and ragged as I peered around. I had escaped, but the question loomed. Where was I now? The muffled voices faded behind me, but a new sound whispered through the darkness. It was faint, like a whispering breeze, too soft to be real. I felt a chill crawl up my spine as I turned. Find her! The low voice from above echoed in my mind. But someone, or something, else was waiting right in front of me. The air crackled with tension. I wasn't alone anymore. And then everything fell silent. I stumbled forward into the darkness, my eyes straining to adjust. The air thickened around me, smelling of mold and something akin to rust. My fingertips brushed against the earthen wall, and I realized I was in a narrow passageway. Panic and thrill collided inside me. I was moving away from danger but deeper into the unknown. Then I heard it again. A whisper, barely distinguishable but undeniably there. It felt like a breath against my skin. Help me. The plea sent shivers down my spine. Was I imagining it? Or had something truly spoken to me in that darkness? I took a cautious step forward, unsure where to go. The passage shifted, narrowing until I could barely move. My heart raced, desperation seeping back in as I pressed on. Each movement felt heavy, like the shadows around me were wrapping tighter and tighter. Suddenly a glimmer caught my eye. I turned to find an old rusted lantern half buried in the dirt. I brushed off the dirt frantically and, feeling my way along the lantern's base, discovered a tiny lever. I hesitated, but I had to try. With shaking hands, I pulled it. To my surprise, the lantern flickered to life, casting golden light around me. Shadows danced on the walls like performing apparitions. I saw inscriptions carved into the stone. Names, dates, familiar yet haunting. They pulled at my memory, but I couldn't place them. Jessica! The sudden voice booming again from above jolted me. I winced. Why did they seem so close? I had barely moved. Panic gripped me tighter. I had to keep moving, but where? The light swayed, and I felt a pull to the left. Following the passage, I found a small alcove. Inside, a rotten wooden crate sat, half open, revealing tattered papers. I knelt down, the lantern's light illuminating the faded ink. My breath caught as I recognized a name. It was my husband's. Thomas. I murmured, the name feeling both foreign and intimate. My hands trembled as I fished out one of the papers. It detailed transactions, deals made in secrecy, agreements marked with dates that backtracked long before his death. What was this? My heart raced. This was more than I could handle. I flipped through the pages frantically, trying to comprehend what had led him down this rabbit hole. And that's when I saw it. An address, scribbled hastily, looking almost like a warning. It was somewhere in town. But before I could process it, the whisper returned. Clearer this time. Help me. The voice wrapped around me like a serpent, squeezing. I turned, but the light began to flicker. In that moment of darkness, I felt a presence draw near. My breath quickened. "Who's there?" I shouted, trembling. And that's when the lantern went out entirely, plunging me into cold, oppressive darkness. I stood frozen, senses heightened, straining to hear anything. No, no, no. My mind raced. I had to escape. Fumbling for the lantern, I felt a damp surface beneath my hands. The silence thickened, and I was no longer alone. Someone was there in the pitch black, and I could feel their breath against me. Then a low chuckle echoed through the tunnel, chilling me to my core. I felt the shadows close in, thick and suffocating. But I couldn't just stand there. Braving the darkness, I took a step back, my heart pounding in my chest. Panic ebbed into clarity. I needed to find a way out. With trembling hands, I scrambled to feel the walls, searching for any sign of a way forward. The chuckle rang out again, followed by a low, rasping whisper. "You shouldn't have come here." My breath hitched. I had to keep moving, unearth whatever truth my husband buried. I turned deeper into the passage, willing myself not to think of what was behind me. Each step felt like a leap of faith into the unknown. Barely a foot ahead, I was met by the edge of an old doorway. The low framing was wooden, splintered, and worn down by time. I hesitated only for a moment before stepping through. Light flickered again, and I realized I still had a bit of the lantern left, though weak and dim. This new space opened up into a cavernous room, larger than I'd expected. The walls were lined with shelves of jars, rusty tools, and broken pottery. I scanned the area, searching for answers. The whispers quieted. I could almost hear the echoes of my own breathing. Then, a flash of movement caught my eye. I turned just in time to see a shadow dart behind a pile of debris. My heart raced again. It had to be my imagination, right? The dark was playing tricks on me. But still, I felt the urge to investigate. I moved cautiously, navigating the clutter. The dust hung thick in the air, pooling in the corners. That's when I stumbled across something unexpected. A ledger lay half buried beneath a rusted shovel. Curiosity tugged at me, and I reached down to retrieve it. As I flipped through, names leapt off the page. Some I recognized. My husband's name appeared several times, along with others I didn't know. Deals, payments, and dates were etched in hurried writing. But the last entry froze me in place. It detailed a payment that coincided with Thomas's death. Why? I whispered to myself, staggering backward. The implications hit me like icy water. Not only was he involved in something illicit, but it seemed tied to his very end. My stomach twisted with both dread and unresolved pain. Then something clattered at the entrance. I whirled around, my skin crawling. Is someone there? I called out. My voice echoed in the cavern, but the shadows swallowed my words. The presence felt closer now, lurking just beyond the threshold. My grip tightened on the ledger as I tried to focus my thoughts. I needed to escape, but what if I was being hunted? I couldn't remain here. As I edged toward the doorway, fear gnawed at my resolve. Just as I reached the threshold, the dim lantern flickered once more, revealing a familiar outline standing just at the edge of the light. Cold dread pooled in my gut as I gasped. Jessica. The voice was unmistakably Thomas's, resonating with a haunting familiarity. You have to find me. Before I could respond, the lantern sputtered out, plunging me into suffocating darkness once more. The air crackled with tension as I realized I was no longer alone. My heart was racing again, pounding against my ribs like a caged animal. The darkness was thick, wrapping around me in a vice grip. I strained my ears, desperate to catch even a hint of sound, but only silence met me. In this new void, I swung my arms out, searching for the wall, the frame of the doorway, anything to guide me. My fingers brushed against something cold and slick. Was that a wall, or something else? The air felt electric, and I was suddenly acutely aware of the weight of the ledger in my hands. I backed away slowly, inching toward the spot where I thought I'd seen Thomas's silhouette. What do you want? I shouted into the darkness. My voice echoed back, but I heard no response. Then, a thump came from behind me, sharp and jarring. I swung around, heart racing, waiting for movement. But nothing came. I felt exposed and vulnerable, the shadows pulsing with unseen threats. Gathering my courage, I took a small step forward when a faint glimmer caught my eye. I squinted into the darkness and saw something. Maybe it was a glint from a tool or a piece of glass. Whatever it was, I had to get closer. The ledger cradled against my chest. I moved gingerly toward the light. As I stumbled across the floor, barely able to make out my surroundings, my foot caught on something. An old rusted chain. I fell forward, desperately reaching to catch myself. As I did, my hand closed around the glimmering object. I felt a cold chill as I pulled it free from the dirt. It was a small pendant, intricately designed, cold and heavy in my palm. My breath hitched again. I recognized it. It was Thomas's pendant, one he always wore. The realization clenched at my insides. Thomas! I whispered, panic threading through my voice. What was happening? Why was it here? A rush of images flooded my mind. Talks of secrets, whispers about the deal tied to his death. Could it be linked to all of this? The darkness seemed to close in even further. What if Thomas was not just dead but had been lured here by something sinister? Something that had now found me. I turned to backtrack to the doorway but felt a presence shift behind me. The hair on my neck prickled. Looking for me? The voice, this time twisted and low, echoed through the room, drowning out my thoughts in a rush of dread. Panic surged within me, and I could feel a presence moving closer, more solid than before. I didn't have time to think. I turned to run, clenching the pendant tight in my fist as I sprinted towards the doorway. Every instinct urged me to move faster. Then everything went dark again. The shadows shifted like living things, and the oppressive weight of fear bore down on me. I slammed into something solid. An unseen wall? A figure? I screamed, a raw sound tearing from my throat, the echo enveloping me once more. And then I felt it. A tug on the pendant. A clawing, pulling sensation as if it wanted to be free. Soulless laughter filled the air just as I stumbled blindly backward, desperate to escape whatever darkness awaited. Find me. The voice whispered again, surrounding me. Was Thomas truly calling? Or was something else here to claim me as well? The walls of the tunnel began to close in on me. My heart thundered in my chest as I stumbled blindly through the overwhelming darkness, my fingers still clutching the pendant. "Find me!" echoed in my mind, like a prayer tainted with despair. Panic surged within. The whispers were growing louder, almost insistent, begging and demanding at once, pulling me deeper into the abyss. With every step, a chill sank into my bones. I could feel shadows weaving through the air around me as if they were searching, crawling along the pathways of my memories. I pressed onward, feeling for the edges of the tunnel, praying for an exit to the nightmare I was in. But there was no escape. Only the darkness wrapped around me tighter as the lurking whispers grew nearer. "You shouldn't be here." The voice hissed from somewhere ahead, its tone laced with malicious amusement. "You should have left the past buried." I faltered, my fingers brushing against the cold earthen walls, the surrounding air thick with foreboding energy. What had I unearthed? Why had I been drawn here in the first place? My breath quickened as realization hit me. It wasn't just about my husband. It was about the choices he'd made, the dangers he'd courted. Was I now entwined in that same dark fate? Taking a deep breath, I moved forward one tentative step at a time, unwilling to be paralyzed by fear. After what felt like an endless stretch, I finally caught a flicker of light ahead, its pale glow beckoning. Maybe it was safety, an exit, or perhaps something else entirely. When I reached it, I found a heavy door, worn yet barely ajar, with the faintest of glimmers spilling out. I pushed it open hesitantly, the hinges groaning like a long-forgotten specter, awakening for one last haunting. I stumbled into the light but was immediately met with an expansive room, an underground chamber lined with old objects, forgotten relics of lives once lived. A shiver coursed through me as I took in the sight. Mirrors dust-covered and cracked, portraits hanging limply, eyes following me with a gaze too deep to comprehend. But at the center there was an ornate table, with a familiar visage. My husband's pendant sat silently amid its clutter, gleaming darker than I remembered. I approached cautiously, suddenly torn. Was he here somehow because it felt like something in the air was shifting? I touched the pendant even as questions swirled through my mind. Did he want me to uncover this hidden truth? Or was this where it truly began? The source of the danger surrounding me. All at once, the whispers melded together into a chaotic choir, drowning me in dread. "You've awakened what should have stayed hidden," echoed ominously through the room, inflating the already palpable fear. I could feel it, a heaviness that threatened to smother. And just like that, I turned. I needed to leave, retreat back into the depths of the tunnel where it felt safer than confronting whatever darkness lay here. I couldn't linger. I could feel the air change, charged with something malignant. But before I could take a step away from the table, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was the woman from the garden, her wild hair fluttering like restless spirits around her. She stepped into the light, revealing an expression of haunting familiarity left untouched by time. "You shouldn't have come here," she cautioned, her voice a steady warning, eyes glancing nervously toward the door. "They're closer than you think." "Who are they?" My voice trembled. "What do you know?" "The ones drawn by what's buried," she whispered urgently, taking a step closer. "It isn't just about the letters anymore. It's their hunger for what was left behind. Your husband. He unearthed it when he was searching for answers. And now." The air pulsed sharply, and I inhaled, tasting the weight of fear around us. "Now what?" I asked, desperate for clarity. I had to make sense of this spiral into chaos. There's no telling what he unleashed. But if they find you... Her voice trailed off, fear washing over her features. There's no more time. You must escape. Before I could react, the echoes of distant laughter returned, dark and insatiable, swirling around us like a frigid wind. I felt my body grow cold as I caught sight of shadowy figures pressing closer to the doorway, their silhouettes distorting against the dim light like twisted remnant shadows. "They're coming!" she shouted, pushing me toward the narrow exit I'd first come through. "You must go. They will take you, just like they took him." I hesitated, desperately raking through my mind. It couldn't end like this. What about the truth? The letters? What if uncovering everything left behind was the only way out? But there was no time to decide. The figures loomed nearer, stretching like nightmares reaching for the living. My instincts kicked in, carving a path through the scattered relics. I could feel the air grow heavier as shadows clawed for my feet. I turned back once, fatefully, hoping to glean one last glimpse, to hear a final warning. But the woman had vanished, consumed by the dark. And as I bolted into the tunnel, the laughter rang louder, swirling in layers of whispers that tugged me towards my past. I pushed myself forward through the narrow space, pressed against the dirt walls, knowing that whatever lay behind would always haunt me. It was a piece of the past I might never unravel, and I didn't understand it all yet. But I could escape. The truth would have to wait, untouched for now. Emerging into the chill of moonlit air, I collapsed against the side of my home, breathing heavily, a mix of fear and a strange determination coursing through me. I wasn't free from the whispers. I wasn't finished with the quest. But the shadows would have to chase me elsewhere, because I was ready to fight. Some days I was brave. Some days I felt weak. But then, it all spiraled back, didn't it? As I glanced back toward the depths from which I'd just escaped, I understood that some answers might remain forever buried beneath layers of whispers and shadows, chasing me into the unknown. I wasn't sure I could ever face them again, but I would try to forge my own way